So really, you don't want to come jump in and like whip this out right away. You want to
whip out the pea cup.
I think the pea cup, I mean, I don't know how you were introduced to that. I mean, put it this way. If you were walking through one of those old department stores where they sell the perfume and you saw one of those kiosks and they were like, take this pea cup. You can pee like a man. You know what I mean? Don't you want to try that?
Hey, Warners, welcome to another episode of Women Your Mother Warned You About.
The podcast that makes business sexy again.
I'm Gina Tremarco. What am I? I am sales trainer, improviser, comedian, all of the things, now working for Sales Gravy.
I'm Rachel Pitts, mommy, wifey, mortgage loan officer with U.S. Mortgage, and fitness expert at the Ultra Fit Lifestyle. Getting hype with Michael today.
Ooh, you loved this episode, didn't you?
I did. I dig this kind of
Michael,
thing. Like
Michael is cool.
Like warfare marketing.
Yeah, he is. I tell the story on this episode of how he and I met. I know we joke around about like, who is this guest you're bringing on? And it is a great story. Like, it's such a great story about how the two of us met. And that conference that he and I met at Salesforce in 2016, like that was such a instrumental conference for me to be at because I did meet Michael Schein there, who's our guest today. And that's where I met Jeffrey Gitomer. And that's where I met Simon Sinek. Like, I met so many people at that conference, and Jennifer Gluckow. I met so many people at that conference that have become very instrumental to me personally, but also to us and to this show. So that is super cool. But I'm excited to have Michael on because he's talking about his new book that I've known about forever. And so now it's coming to fruition. So I'm going to give a little bit of background on Michael for those who don't know him. Michael Schein is the founder and president of MicroFame Media, a marketing agency that specializes in making idea-based companies famous in their field. Some of his clients have included eBay, Magento, the Medici Group, University of Pennsylvania, Gordon College, University of California, Irvine, United Methodist Publishing House, Ryko, LinkedIn, and Citrix. He writes a ton of stuff. His writing has appeared in Fortune, Forbes, Inc., Psychology Today, Huffington Post, and he is a speaker for international audiences spanning from the northeastern United States to the southeastern coast of China. His new book, The Hype Handbook, 12 Indispensable Success Secrets from the World's Greatest Propagandists, Self-Promoters, Cult Leaders, Mischief Makers, and Boundary Breakers, published by McGraw-Hill, appears everywhere books are sold in January 2021, if not sooner. This episode comes out before then, so you never know. The book might actually be out by the time you hear this. I mean, I meant to ask him about Mischief Makers because I think that's what you and I are. We are Mischief Makers.
I'm not all bad. I'm just drawn that way. I don't mean to. It's so true, though.
What did you think of this episode?
I just wish that I could have the book right now. I'm so excited about it because I've always found those type of propagandists really fascinating. I mean, just, you can actually put Jesus and Hitler and Charles Manson in the same bucket because they were able to persuade people to change their ideas and follow them, One obviously for good, the others for bad.
Yeah.
And Michael talks a little bit about that you can use these techniques for good or for bad. And hopefully all you Warners, we know you're good. So you'll use good magic. But it is fascinating to try to use influence for marketing, and everybody's trying to be seen in all the noise today. So he's got some great tips that he talks about. And then obviously in the book, once you grab your copy, to find out more warfare marketing techniques.
I mean, I love it because in in my opinion, it's about how to be an influencer without being like an asshole. I don't know. That's kind of
like an eye
how
rolling.
I see it. Yeah. Yeah, but he's got some great stories that he shares with us, like his story about Gary Vee. I'm so happy he told that story. I knew it, but you hadn't heard it, and I think our Warners are going to love it. Hi, my friend, my Jewish friend.
Good to see you. Shalom.
Shalom.
It's an old joke.
Yeah, Michael and I have this old joke. My friend the Jew. Yeah, today, Rachel and I both happen to be getting our hair done at the same time. We go to the same place. She's like, "Who is this guy we're talking to today?"
I always say that. Is he boring?
You're like,
a little.
He's so not boring.
Honestly.
No, I read your bio and I'm excited.
Yeah, he's
thank you.
So
Thank
not
you.
boring.
Who's this lady? I know Gina, but who are you?
Who are you?
I am depends on the day. I am Rachel Pitt's mommy, wifey, mortgage broker, and fitness expert.
Wow, that's a lot.
And she's about to compete in a. We have to show him the P Cup.
Oh, do you want to check out the P Cup, man? So I'm about to.
He needs to know about this.
Welcome to Women Your Mother Warned You About. Hold on, let me turn my volume down on this other computer.
Are we recording yet? Like, is this the?
Always.
Oh God, yeah. Yeah, we've learned to go just like start recording immediately because we never know what's going to come out of our mouths, and then the producer has fun with it.
That's good. I was thinking of blowing my nose, so I'm not.
Oh,
gonna
okay.
do that.
Yeah, I mean he can edit that out.
You can
No,
also
I'm really-
mute. You can mute.
But I don't need to. Yeah, it's just one of those things, you know.
Well, one reason that I was excited about talking to you, since you're a hype guy, is that I've been slowly hyping this event because I've been a fitness trainer for like 20 years and I stopped doing it because, I should do something more responsible and that makes me more money, and I love it. So, and now I'm competing in a bikini fitness competition this Saturday.
Uh-huh.
I've been training since March, like when COVID started.
I guess, but what is it? And what's the P Cup?
The P Cup, I'm getting to that. I had to preface it so you could understand what the P Cup is for.
Got it. Okay.
So it's a fitness competition. In fitness competitions, it started out as like Arnold Schwarzenegger, all the bodybuilders, Then they added females. And so now there's physique, which is kind of the like big girls physique. Right. And then bikini is more feminine. So it's just, there's a different category. So, but I've always been pretty lean because I've started ballet very young and had a dance career, but I've never been as lean as I am right now. And it's insane. And the folks that are my coaches are just incredibly smart with how they're doing the scientific measurement of everything. So there's a lot of money and time spent on this training for this event. And then you spend all this money to get spray tan so that you have even look and the muscles are more defined with the spray tan. So you don't want to screw up your spray tan.
Right.
So I was told that you should get little Dixie cups to pee through so that it wouldn't splatter on your legs. You asked. We were going to not talk about the pee cup.
I thought they were going to test you for steroids or something. That's what I was thinking.
No.
Oh, yeah, I can see how that would be a thought.
Yeah.
Pee in this cup.
I have not taken any performance-enhancing drugs. I'm just naturally killing it. Grueling.
Working hard, right?
So there's a device that it's actually called the Tsunami. Tsunami.
I get it.
That you pee through as a woman. But the interesting thing is that I think the piece of paper.
The paper is hysterical.
The paper is fun. You're not to sit like normally women sit. You stand, right. And this is the picture that it says, do not do this, but this. So I'm going to try to navigate this.
They say.
I don't know. I would find that weird.
Standing up and peeing?
And I'm not a woman. I'm used to standing up, but I try to put myself in other people's shoes.
Don't know. It says to practice in the shower if you don't know how to do it. So it's like, here it is. It has not been used yet, so it's totally innocent.
Oh my God.
So it's a real thing though.
I am just fascinated. Is this a video show, by the way? Because if the viewers at home are missing these visuals, that'd be a
we're filming
our producer pulls good video clips out of it, especially.
Well, that's the one thing. The cool thing about doing something new, I had no idea any of these details. I've been documenting everything because I find it to be a fascinating industry, full of opportunity. Because I didn't know this existed, and I was all about like, I got to make a real pea cup, rather than cutting the bottoms out of Dixie cups. But I'm going to see how the design is and if there's, opportunity.
We'll have to do a follow-up. I'm curious. Now I'm extremely curious.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, welcome.
You didn't bargain for this today, did you?
Welcome.
Oh, but I'm going. I like it. Welcome.
Yeah, welcome to the women your mother warned you about. I hope you realize what you've gotten yourself into, Michael.
You were warned.
I wasn't warned. I mean, the title warned me. My mother certainly did not.
Well, the good news is you've known me for a few years.
Yeah. I'm definitely getting your book. I don't have your book, but I'm definitely getting it just by reading about the book, which we talk about in the intro for you guys. It just looks like somebody like me that just what we were talking about. I'm venturing back into my past of fitness, and I have a big event that I can hype. And I've been slowly hyping, so I'm curious of other ways I can hype.
Well, this really is the perfect show because we're all about business and especially sales. And sales is such a hype and how we promote what we do and what we sell. And Michael and I have known each other for several years. And I think part of the magic with that is, I mean, I've been waiting for this book to come out. I know you've been waiting, Michael, but it's like, I know you're excited about it, but I'm super excited about it because I've been following your journey on this. So talking about...
how long have I been talking? I probably have been talking about the idea since I've known you because I thought about the idea probably 5 years ago or something.
I know. And here we are. The book's coming out. And I was excited that you reached out to let me know it was coming out because anytime we can have friends on that we can hype, that's super exciting because that's what it's all about.
It's a kind of a pivotal year where you just have to go with the flow, isn't it?
This is really who we are. We created this show 2 years ago. I can't believe we just recorded our 100th episode and
we only almost broke up
once. We're near the end of season 2, getting ready for season 3, and it's been quite the journey. And I think the funnest part of this show has been just saying whatever the fuck we want. It comes out of our mouth, and people love it and follow it. Boom. Yep. Everything is honest and truthful.
That's what you've always done, Gina. That's your thing, and it's great and it's funny. That's why we hung out that first time when we met at that conference.
Okay, so we got to talk a little backstory here because I don't think I told Rachel the story of how we met. So we were both at a Salesforce conference back in the summer of 2016. The summer of 2016. Yeah. I remember it well.
I think that was like the golden age, like before like the iceberg broke into the sea.
Something like that. Yeah. It was a pivotal moment in time, and there we were sharing space at a charging table at a conference center in New York City and button up next to each other, and me trying to find a place to get good Chinese food, and you heard us talking about it and then started giving suggestions on where to eat, and from there here we are ever since.
I probably told you about the soup dumpling place for which I forget what it is. There's this really good soup dumpling place.
Yeah, I can't.
You gotta like bite the dumpling and like kind of suck out the soup, or else it'll burn your tongue.
I would have remembered that. No, I don't remember that.
I don't know.
And wherever we went, it was really good. And then Michael and I have stayed friends ever since. And it's because of Michael that I started podcasting with the.
Yeah, that's true. I forgot about that.
See, so you.
So I wouldn't even be here without you, Michael.
See?
Yeah. Exactly.
It all comes back to Michael. That's why it was so cool to have you on the show because you.
Now I know about the pea cup, so it was like an even
I know,
trade.
You're the first man to see my pea cups.
Wow. I think we have a special little something. Maybe we can take it off.
You saw it before. It's a virgin. It's a virgin pea cup now, too.
Yeah. You have a cigarette?
As a matter of fact, I do.
Oh my god. So that's a little bit of the back history, and I got the pivotal leader off the ground, and that led to all kinds of things, which got us here to Women Your Mother Warned You About, which has had different transformational effects on both of us. So it all goes back to you, Michael, the hype guy.
Well, honestly, beyond the joking, I am very happy. You took the ideas and ran with it and made it into something really significant. Not everyone, very few people do that, actually.
Well,
so.
and I got the book started. It started.
True. That's another exciting thing. Yeah.
Stop with the eye roll. I did a workshop with Michael to write my book.
She's going to have the best book that ever was when she finally writes the thing.
Well, I've been writing it.
I'm like her biggest hype cheerleader of like, it's going to be the greatest book in the history of the world. It's got everything: gangsters, con artists, love,
you're putting all that into it?
Sales.
Yeah, sales. Yeah, con artist. Yeah, I mean, if it makes you feel any better, I thought about the book idea 5 years ago, and the actual writing was in some ways the shortest part, because the different proposals and iterations and research and this and that, so
well,
it can take.
Well, let's talk about it. Let's talk about the Hype Handbook. Let's first talk about the idea, where it came from, and why you've had this idea 5 years ago.
Well, the idea to write it as a book came about 5 years ago, but I guess it goes back farther. So, I mean, about 10 years ago now, I was working in a corporate job. I've told this story a lot of times, but I had never wanted to be in business when I was a kid, when I was a teenager, even in my 20s. I took a few business classes because my dad said that I had to if he was going to pay for my college. And, but I didn't intend to use them. And I was going to write novels. And then after that, I got obsessed with music. So I was in a band, and it was kind of like a punk band, sort of. And we were, really theatrical. Yeah. And we did all kinds of stuff to, get our name out. That, I used to dress like a nun and on stage and whatever, So we would put around flyers that said Dave Matthews must die. I don't know. I look back, Dave Matthews wasn't really that bad, but that was just like a thing we did for some reason. So anyway, this is relevant because I kind of fell into a corporate job, and I'm a hard worker, and I'm not a dummy. So I started to do well there. And for the first 3 to 5 years, it was a really worthwhile experience because I learned a lot. But after that, I was there out of inertia. I mean, I was not happy at all. And I just was scared to leave because I was making a nice living. And then eventually I got the courage up to leave, and I became a freelance copywriter. And I just sort of decided that because I wrote well, I would do well. People would pay me, and then they'd know how well I wrote, and they'd pay me. I remember thinking, I'll do a white paper a week for $3,000, and then I'll be able to make as much money as I made, at my job. That was my business plan. That did not work. I had 8 years worth of savings, which I burned through. I had no idea how to get people to discover me. And I read every marketing and sales book, and frankly, they did nothing for me whatsoever. I learned nothing. I learned a lot. I didn't make any more money after reading those books than I did before I read those books. So out of desperation, probably more than anything, I started to think about, well, how did we, what is this marketing stuff? Anyway, it's just getting people to pay attention to you. And I remember we were really good marketers when I was in the band. We probably were better marketers than people in a band. I mean, we sold out Arlene's Grocery on a Wednesday night, which was a really, famous club where the Strokes played and everything. And I don't know that we were the best band in the world, which is why we never made it, So I thought we were good, but obviously other people,
What was the name of the band?
The Act, we were called. I still think we were kind of good.
Good name.
Thank you. Anyway, to make a very long story medium, I started to research these kind of unconventional marketers. I would read about rock managers, like the Sex Pistols manager. And from there, I went to propaganda artists and cult leaders, all these sort of out there. esoteric kind of people. And I thought to myself, can I apply this stuff ethically? Because if these people just do awful things, I don't want any part of that, like I'm not that guy. I mean, I didn't leave my job to do meaningful work to become a scumbag, you know what I mean? But if these are just about group psychology tactics and they can be applied ethically, why don't I try to take the good stuff? So that's what I did. And this, Gina, you know the story, so I won't go into it. But the first thing I did, I wrote an article called Why Gary Vaynerchuk Was Flat Out Wrong. Picked a fight with him. He responded to me, agitated.
No, tell the story. I've heard it, but nobody else has.
Could I?
Yes. Everybody wants to hear something about Gary V getting mad. Let's go.
So I was a nobody and Gary V was Gary V. And I have to say, I think in many ways he's a marketing genius. So I think Wine Library TV, which was his first business, Wine Library was really good. I mean, they had a great service. It was a product, it was a service, they were selling wine. But then after that, I noticed that a lot of the advice he was giving, usually to young people, did a really good job of helping Gary V. You know what I mean? Like he built this giant following. But, I would ask around and I didn't really know. No one could ever tell me what were the marketing campaigns. He started this agency, Vayner Media. And I would ask people, what are the marketing campaigns that he's actually running? What are the big, Crispin Porter Bogowski did the Truth anti-smoking campaign. What's the big Vayner Media campaign? So I heard that they did Mr. Robot's social media campaign. And I was like, that was really good. But then I heard that they outsourced it. So I still don't know the answer to this question. And I would hear him give this advice like, you got to work all the time. Since you can say anything on this show, what he used to say was, I get up at 3 a.m. and I take a shit and I'm tweeting from the toilet. And that's what you have to do to make it. I maybe he would use the pee cup today. I don't know. So I was like, what if you're making the wine and you're not selling the wine? Like, why aren't all these kids rich? Why is the only person getting rich Gary Vaynerchuk? So I basically wrote this article about how if you really want to be successful in marketing, you need to build systems because not everyone can sit and tweet for 16 hours a day. And I was scared to send it. And I was really, I don't believe in trolling. I didn't troll him. I think he's brilliant. I mean, I just disagreed with his advice very strongly. And so I wrote this article and that night he responded to me by video. And in the beginning, he was very measured and Michael Schein made some good points. By the end, he was sweating and talking about how much money he had and how whatever, how dare I, say all this and
sweet,
Yeah. So I was at first nervous, but then, and people were blowing up my Twitter feed. I mean, I gained, they were, you're an idiot, you're lazy, you're blah, blah, blah. I didn't feel lazy because I was working around the clock and making no money. So, but ultimately, I got all these followers because all these people were feeling the same way that I did without saying it. So I guess I learned that wow, that wasn't so different than the stuff I used to admire in I don't know, Malcolm McLaren, the Sex Pistols manager, when the Queen had her Golden Jubilee or Silver Jubilee, and they sailed down the Thames River playing a song about how the Queen was a fascist. You know what I mean? And I was like, that's kind of what I just did, that's cool. So then I got really into it and started reading all these books and started taking the stuff that worked and discarding the stuff that didn't. And it worked. I mean, my copywriting practice started to do, pretty well. And then people wanted the marketing more than they wanted the writing even. So it turned into a business. So after about 5 years of doing that, it just became important to me to share this stuff for a couple of reasons, because I think there are a lot more people like me than there are like Gary Vaynerchuk. I guess I can be funny, I can whatever, but I'm not this over the top natural salesman at all, And I think there are a lot of people who are a little more introverted, who don't even like the idea of promotion. But I guess two things about this thing I call hype, which is really how do you get large numbers of people emotional to get them to take an action, on your behalf. There's an extra element, and it's that element of play. It's that element that you can be a little bit mischievous, with your promotion. and have fun with it, but do it in service of good products, do it without lying, doing it without deceiving, because so many people who do that naturally do deceive. And so I think it's really important to put that in the hands of the people who don't come to it as naturally, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Can you elaborate on some of those hype artists that weren't doing it for good?
I would say that on balance, there are more people not doing it for good than who are doing it for good. There are a lot who do it for good. I mean, I would say that Richard Branson is a good hype artist who's not deceptive and who has great products. I would say in some ways, even Martin Luther King, because he was a master of the media, and he most certainly was doing good. But I would say in general, more people don't do it for good. And for a long time, I thought, is that because I'm fooling myself and that this idea of what I'm calling hype is, inherently bad, and I want to be able to master these skills of mass manipulation and this and so I'm telling myself stories. And I found out that I don't think that's true. I'm pretty sure it's not true. I think the difference is people that we consider bad guys, I don't know, narcissists, sociopaths, whatever you want to, con artists, they tend to see the world as it is. And a lot of times, they've done studies where, let's take a psychopath or a sociopath, someone who can't empathize with people, and they take a lot of external stimuli to feel a charge. Their resting heart rate is lower. Like, they can have an interpersonal kind of dynamic with somebody that's extremely stressful for most people, and they care so little about seeing the world through that person's eyes, or how feeling bad for them, or whatever it is, or even just the idea that they might feel shame or that they might feel nerves. They don't. They see people as chess pieces. And I realized that doesn't mean, so it's not that these tactics are evil. It's just that they see the world as it really is, not how it ought to be, right? So I started to say, okay, how can I emulate that without doing harm? Because I know, like, I could tomorrow, if I did every hype strategy and tactic perfectly, I could have everything I wanted in the world, because this stuff works. People are more alike than they are different. But even now I can't, because, what are they going to think of me? I'm nervous. It's like you might read a book on quote unquote how to pick up girls, but that doesn't mean you're going to approach someone in a bar, and it doesn't mean you're not going to seem nervous, right? So I think a big thing, and I talk about this in the book, that you have to do is do whatever works for you to calm your nervous system, So you have to, whether that's meditation or martial arts or working out, that's important. But I didn't answer your question, which is to tell you some of the stories of the negative figure. So yeah, do you want me to, like, what would be sort of helpful
just
there?
a couple, tell a couple stories about a couple hype people out there that maybe weren't doing it for good, but they had the power of persuasion to get people to do the things that they wanted them to do. There's, I don't know if this is one that you've covered, but one that comes to my mind is, I can't remember his name now, but from, oh gosh, what is the name of it? Was it called White City? It was the story about the World Expo in Chicago in the 1800s.
Okay.
Do you know him?
I didn't remember that. He was the one who had the murder house.
Yeah,
and
he had the murder house, and he, when I think of hype, I think of that guy, of how he managed to, like, seduce all of these women into staying in this hotel that he created during the expo, and then ended up murdering and hiding their bodies. But he was a doctor. Like, there's a crazy, I mean, I can't remember the name of the book. I want to say, Devil in the White City. Devil in the White City.
Yeah. I think you're close with that, but I think there's one subtle difference. I think he was a master manipulator, but he was basically saying things to people so he could get them alone and gain their confidence one-on-one, right? Some of the skills are the same, but what I'm more talking about, and why I think it's more playful than that and can be more beneficial, is generating a sense of excitement on a more mass level and kind of getting things to spread and getting energy to build kind of, so I think something maybe closer to that, so here's an example. So there's a guy that not many people know about, but they know about what he left in his wake. His name was Wallace D. Fard. And he operated more or less in the 30s, more than any other time, in an area called Paradise Valley in Detroit, which was an African-American neighborhood and was a poor neighborhood. All of these African-Americans, as many people know, moved to Detroit around that time and a little bit before to work in the auto plants, right? And so this guy, and poor people, because, they got paid less than white people and life was tough and it was still segregation, even though it was in the North, just not as subtle. They lived in a ghetto, more or less, and people who don't have a lot of money don't always have, they face a lot of adverse circumstances that manifest in all kinds of ways. So this guy came to town sort of out of nowhere, and he dressed impeccably, these really fine suits, and he was thin and svelte. And he kind of said that he was a silk merchant. He was from some country in the East, and you never really knew where. And he wore a fez on his hat, so he had this kind of exotic, thing. And he would get people to invite them into their homes, And at a certain point in the conversation, he would, someone would inevitably, he would guide the conversation. They would bring up kind of the way he looked, you're so stylish, you're so, you wear the clothing so well. Yeah. I take care of myself. And he would say, I don't eat any pork and I don't drink any alcohol. Now that was unheard of in this neighborhood. So, I mean, in African-Americans as a whole, it comes from Southern cuisine, which has, quite a bit of pork, and, people drank, but especially the pork thing. So he would say, I don't do that. Try it for a little bit. And they would like drop 10 pounds really quickly because, poor neighborhoods have worse eating habits, right? So he would say, they would say, oh my gosh, it's a miracle. It's amazing. And he would say, well, it's part of my religion, it's Islam. Now, his religion was not really Islam. It was the Nation of Islam. He founded the Nation of Islam. And the Nation of Islam, he cooked up this thing about how there's a mad scientist named Yaqub who created the white man, who are literal devils, to destroy the ancient civilization of the black man, so this is the Nation of Islam, that when people say they're those guys with the bow ties, that's what they believe, so, but black people at that time hadn't, by and large, didn't even know what Islam was. You know what I mean? I mean, a lot of Americans didn't know what Islam was. So they would say, that's really interesting. And before long, this thing had spread throughout this neighborhood. And then his acolyte was Elijah Muhammad, who went out and found Malcolm X. And by the time the 60s rolled around, there were thousands and thousands of people with this. And then certain people like Muhammad Ali, they became actual Muslims. So what he did is a thing that I call the milk before meat thing. It's an old saying from religion: give the little babies their milk before you give them their meat. So if he would have gone into these homes and said to people, hey, so do you know the gospel of Yaqub, the mad scientist who created white people as devils to oppress the black man? They would have,
get the fuck out of here.
I mean, the shotgun would have come out, you know what I mean? But the thing is, human beings have they can't detect small changes. You know what I mean? Very well. It's on the neurological level. So he started out with the silk scarves and, my diet, and, alcohol and pork. Well, actually that comes from my faith. Well, what's your faith? And before long, he had the whole neighborhood, doing this thing. So that's something that you can repurpose for good. A lot of people, they really hammer you with their new idea, and they come in strong, and they come in with their brand new idea and this and that, and no one wants to hear it. But if you can think, what's the smallest thing you can introduce about your message that's sort of as similar as possible to what they already get? And if you're introducing something boring, you want to make it look flamboyant. But if you're introducing something new and radical and that really could impede on them or could part them from their money, you want to come in with really small steps.
Oh, that is so brilliant.
That is awesome. So really, you don't want to come jump in and like whip this out right away. You want to
whip out the pea cup,
slowly introduce.
I think the pea cup. I mean, I don't know how you were introduced to that. I mean, put it this way: if you were, I mean, you're joking, but that's a good point. If you were walking through one of those old department stores where they sell the perfume, and you saw one of those kiosks, and they were like, "Take this pea cup. You can pee like a man." You know what I mean? Don't you want to try that?
A little much. But the interesting thing is that when someone can speak from experience, which is that story you just told, he said, "Oh, well, I just don't eat pork and I don't drink alcohol, and that's why I'm so svelte." And then people are like, "Well, I want to be like that," you know.
Well, it's easy to wrap your head around that, right? That's a simplicity of like, I don't eat pork and I don't drink. And that's very simple for the brain to wrap its head around.
Hey guys, just a real quick reminder, if you'd like to find social media links to me, Rachel, Gina, and our favorite Warner Keith, go visit womenyourmotherwarnsyouabout.com, where you can also find some cool free downloads. Now back to the show.
Not to be political, but everyone's political right now. I think that that's a major problem with, and this has, I'm not going to even reveal what my
don't have to
political persuasion is. It may not be what you think. I think the problems that certain members of the Democratic Party have in winning come because they don't think about couching their ideas in things that people are familiar with. So if you say, yeah, there was a terrible police brutality thing, let's defund the police. They sit there and they explain all day long that they don't really mean taking all the money from the police. And when you really dig into their what they're saying, whether you agree with it or not, there's some logical stuff in what they're saying. But defund the police, it sounds like we're going to dismantle the police. And that is so foreign to what people are used to and think is rational that people start to get nervous. They start to say, oh my gosh, if I vote for these people, are they going to defund the police? So I think it applies in a lot of walks of life, you know?
Well, let's talk about some of the techniques, because that's something that the book explores, is ways to use hype in a good way. And you break that down in the book. Can you share some of that with us?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I've mentioned two indirectly. I mentioned one is pick fights. I mean, I call it make war, not love, because it's if the one thing that really gets people to bond with you is picking a fight with someone else. And it doesn't have to be another person. I mean, it should, in fact, I don't always really recommend that because it causes some bad stuff, but you can pick a fight with an idea, you know? The other one, the milk before meat concept, there's a concept that I call piggybacking, which is make your success seem grassroots, but under the surface, build kind of a secret society who pulls the strings for you, you know? Another one that's kind of the opposite of milk before meat is called make it scientific. So a lot of times what you'll see is people who, so Wallace D. Fard was trying to get people to accept a completely brand new idea, like the pea cup, right? But imagine if you're trying to get people to accept an idea that's completely a ripoff. I don't want to say a ripoff, that doesn't have much different than what other people are selling, because it's not a ripoff. A lot of times, you know, talk about sales. There's a million sales coaches out there, and a lot of times they provide a great service just because, but the principles are pretty common. How much different is one sales principle from another? But if you can use exalted language to talk about common sense things, so instead of saying, you know, yeah, listen, you know, to sell, you want to really set a time, because, you know, you got to hold someone to a benchmark. So make sure you put something on the calendar. You might say, you really need to create a temporal organizational pyramid structure, you know, because, you know, in order to get people to build, structured thinking, because the oxytocin in their brain will bond with the person on the line, you know. So like Simon Sinek does this a lot, right? Like he had this, you know, start with why. He's always talking about dopamine and epinephrine and all this stuff, or that thing he put out about why millennials are the worst people ever. And he had that, which is completely, all millennials were raised by helicopter parents, like everyone, but he talks about all this scientific lingo and the neurons in the brain and the attachment theory. And you look at his background, he worked at like an advertising agency, like literally that was his job. He is like, an advertising guy. He's not a scientist. And his concepts are like, start with why. It's like, have a reason for what you do, love your work.
And I love Simon, and I met Simon at that same conference where I met you. And
yeah, awesome. I'm not saying his stuff's bad. I'm saying that 85,000 people are saying the same things he's saying.
Right, exactly. And it's like, it's not like what he was saying was like earth shattering. Like, start with why, have a purpose. Why is the same thing as a mission. Like, he just packaged it differently and then explained it differently in a more simplistic way. That like making those small little changes for people to like wrap their head around. Milk and meat.
But it's simultaneously simplistic. So he boiled it into a contrarian point of view. Start with why. Because other people are saying, I mean, now we're so used to it, start with why, but they say, know your target. Everyone says, give people what they want, find out your customer's pain point. And he's basically saying, don't do that.
Yeah.
Start with your why. So that's a contrarian point of view. And then that thing could have been a pamphlet, but to make it a book, he talks about all kinds of stuff about how our brains work and he adds all this like expert, because it builds credibility. Right. It makes him sound like an expert.
Ooh, I'm gonna do that with my improvised intelligence book.
I'm
gonna whip in all that scientific.
I'll put the science.
Put all the science in there.
Drop in the science.
I like that.
Man, that science stuff works if you really take a look at it.
Well, we talk about it.
I mean, use real science. I mean, don't make stuff up.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's so, like Gina and I were talking about earlier this week on another episode, we live in an age where you can become an expert in anything. Like you can go and look on YouTube and figure out the science that you want to be talking about. Like buy a book, buy an online course. Like it's so easy to find that kind of information now if you want to create that spin. And it's got to be genuine. Exactly. He's nerdy enough for that science shit to work for him.
Who?
Simon.
So that's what's funny, though. So first of all, and I keep drumming this home because it sounds like I'm telling people to do bad things. I'm not. The science should be real. It's not about deceiving. It's that the people who are reading it will just accept it, whether it's real or not. You know what I mean? But the thing, I sometimes wonder about Simon Sinek, because another principle is packaging. It's that you need to package yourself for what you're trying to convey. Is he really nerdy? I mean, he wears glasses. But he's like a ridiculously handsome guy. He has a
ridiculously
shirt,
handsome,
like unbuttoned, and he obviously works out a lot. And I've seen his girlfriend; she's like a model or something. So is he really nerdy, or is he just putting on his little spectacles to add
look
to
nerdy,
that, making it? So you know him.
It's his costume.
That's what I mean. I think it's a costume. That's what I'm saying. I don't know.
Yeah, I get it.
Nerdy. And if he is nerdy, he definitely plays it up, which is awesome. You can't be who you're not. But Andy Warhol, for example, was known for his external packaging. But it wasn't like he was like this really masculine dude who'd put on a silver wig and black clothing to try to make fun. I mean, he was very shy. He was effeminate in an age where being gay was illegal, but he took that and he made it his package. So he made what could have been considered weaknesses. He didn't try to be someone he wasn't, but he went over the top with everything. So Simon Sinek is probably an intellectual kind of guy, but he also totally dresses like Clark Kent. You know what I mean? Like he's really gone all out with it.
Yeah. I mean, I was drooling over him. I stood in line, waited for him to sign my book.
Really? I can't see it. He's not my type.
I did.
No. Yeah.
But I get business crushes. You know this about me. It's not it's never a physical thing. I'm like, I get business crushes, and then look at what all my business crushes have done for me. Though I've had a lot of business crushes.
Can be very persuasive.
that have put me where. Yeah, I mean, I got a business crush on Jeffrey Gitomer, which is how this show got off the ground.
Did he put you in his little red book?
He did not put us in his little red book, but he did launch Women Your Mother Warned You About.
Jeffrey Gitomer.
Under his...
That's neat.
Huh?
Jeffrey?
Yeah, under his podcast network, yeah.
Wow, that's impressive.
And we're not under that network anymore, but we have the same producer, and then that put us in front of Jeb Blunt, which is now I work for Sales Gravy because of that. So Jeb was a business crush. I mean,
yeah, you see who's benefiting from this shit, and I show up and look pretty. Here we are. And I bring my pea cup.
Well, I was to talk about Women Your Mother Warned You About is its own kind of hype, because the creation of this show was really about, I think, and I want to hear Rachel chime in on this. People already had impressions about Rachel and I individually, and had things to say about us individually. And some of those things were very similar in who we are and our personalities and how we get things done and how we accomplish things. And I think there was a day where we're both like, fuck what everybody thinks. We're just, if this is who you think we are, this is who we are. We're going to be these women. We're going to own this Women Your Mother Warned You About kind of persona. That's how I see it. Rachel, what say you, Rachel?
Well, I pretty much have always been that person because from the very get-go, like at a young age, I knew I wanted to be a dancer, like super duper young. And I just was willing to do anything. And I was always going against the grain. Like I left high school to go to art school, and all my friends were like, why would you do that? I'm like, because I have a plan. And, I just always did everything outside of the box. And I really feel like it creates an exciting life. I had plenty of disasters in my life, but like it creates an exciting life heading towards your goals to do what you really want to do. As long as, like you said, Michael, that it's not hurting others.
Yeah.
And it's, hopefully trying to create positivity in the world on some level. And then just like help people, because it's truly the way to get somewhere. Like the more that I do just random acts of kindness, like there's a girl on one of my on my bikini training team. There's like tons of girls. And she put out in one of our group posts, like, does anybody have any workout clothes they're trying to get rid of? I'll buy it from you. And I'm like, oh my God, I have tons and I need to get rid of it so I can buy some more shit. And I just boxed it up and sent her like some nice stuff too, but just doesn't fit me anymore. And I need to get rid of it. Just gave it to her. And she was like, are you sure you don't want money? I'm like, no, I just want to like do something nice. That's it. There's no strings. You don't have to owe me anything. Just go forth and work out, just do nice things and help people. And then you never know what those connections are going to turn out. On the other hand,
yeah, for sure.
On the other hand, like what Gina and I both do is we're so different. Like I work in mortgage and I do all these music videos, like parody videos where I sing, and it's so outside the box of what other mortgage lenders. It's just like people are like, what's she going to do next?
Can I find these online? That seems really entertaining.
Oh yeah. Yes. At the Singing Lender on YouTube, or go to the Singing Lender on Facebook and you can see the videos, or on YouTube.
All right.
I don't know if
that's a great version
you'll
of
love
Hype.
them. There's one I actually do a Blondie one.
So funny.
My first one I did was Blondie.
Yeah, so that's another principle: be theatrical. So
yeah, like I see Alice Cooper on your list there, and I was thinking about that, especially with the punk movement. You'll be happy to know, Michael, that I have a Black Flag bars tattoo on my arm over here in my sleeve.
Do you really? That's the one tattoo I ever got close to having. I never did it, but that's very cool.
There's not very many people that know what it is, but you would. So I was going to take my shirt off and show you, but that would be too much. You already saw my pea cup. But a lot of the whenever I kind of got into the punk scene around here, there's like this persona, like the Ramones, like they were so badass looking and scary looking, but they were so nice guys, like really nice guys. So it's just the costume.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and Alice Cooper plays golf, you know?
Yeah, he's so mellow, but he comes when he goes out on stage, it's insane. It's so great. And I think that the punk rockers like Guar, they're just masters of complete like craziness when they're just like nice dudes.
Yeah, I mean, the one that I always saw as besides the Sex Pistols, as like the pinnacle of like how hype can be a beautiful thing is Bowie, because like his whole thing, especially in the early days, was Ziggy Stardust. Before he was famous, he would like show up in a limo and like leave before anyone knew who he was. So he had this story about being sort of this outer space rock star, and people didn't know anything about him. And then like there's that famous thing where at the height of their fame, he broke up the band on stage. You know, he basically like it was like that song Rock and Roll Suicide. And I remember thinking like everyone, you always hear like, I have a lot of friends who are writers, and writing is what they do for a living. You know, they don't do it in service of something else. And they'll say things like, oh man, you know, my publisher wants me to market myself and I have to do it, but what a drag. It's so not fun. I just want to write. And that's cool. That's one way of looking at it. But what if the marketing or the hype and the art or the business were one and the same? Like, why can't it be playful and fun and interwoven into what you do versus like, okay, I create the thing, now I market it, and marketing it is a drag. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. You know, I have one really quick story. There's a book that I read once. It was called Audition. I don't know what happened to that book. It's a great book. And it had this story in there about Barbra Streisand. And when she was hired for Funny Girl on Broadway, she shows up to this audition. She's late. She comes stumbling in, or, you know, and she's got 2 different shoes on. And she's like, oh God, I just was like so crazy trying to get here. And she has this whole story about why she was late and why she put on 2 different shoes by accident. And she's like, oh, hold on a second. And then she takes her gum out of her mouth and sticks it underneath the stool on stage, and then proceeds to sing. And of course, she's Barbra Streisand, but she back then was like funny looking and, you know, you're never going to make it. And of course they hired her. But the coolest thing was afterwards, the producer looked underneath the stool and there was no gum there.
Oh, that's awesome.
It was the whole thing was an act. And it goes into like, you got to have an act if you want to stand out. They're just, you know, people are sitting there all day watching good singers, pretty girls that can sing pretty good. But if you can do something completely shock and awe and also be good at what you're doing. Don't try that shit if you suck.
Yeah. Well, and what's so cool about that is she didn't just do a random act. I think sometimes you'll see like on American Idol, people think you have to have an act. So they'll come in wearing glitter and a tutu and like a headdress, and they start singing like a lunatic. And you're just like, this person's an idiot. They're a clown, you know? Barbra Streisand, if you know anything about Funny Girl, which you do, but I mean, for the audience, it's about a flighty all over the place, you know? So she embodied this, that she could play the role by doing it in real life. So I think that's where people go wrong. Like they'll hear things like pick a fight and they'll be a troll and they'll be like, you're ugly, you're a jerk, you're an asshole. And you're like, no, you're just a troll. You're an asshole. It's about picking a fight with purpose, picking a fight with an idea, or having a shtick. It's not just like, I remember literally seeing this person on American Idol, and you know, it was sad. You know, what was going through her head was, if I go on stage and I'm wild and crazy and I wear a costume, and they were just like, what is this? You know, you're not even a very good singer, right? So I think you hit the nail on the head. She embodied that thing.
Mm-hmm. But you gotta think about it ahead of time. You can't just like do stuff. Make sure it makes sense. Like this whole thing that I've been trying to do, which talking to you makes me excited because I don't know. I just intuitively was like, I'm just gonna drip out only in my Facebook stories my training for this bikini competition. Just gonna let people get curious. And lo and behold, they are fucking curious. And then when, you know, the actual thing happens, whatever the results are, then I can hype that. And then it's actually leading into the holidays where I push towards getting into training people once again in the new year when everybody needs their New Year's resolutions. So like, you got to start forward thinking with stuff like that sometimes too.
It's all strategy. You get is the whole thing. You can't just go out and start being a wild card. I think being strategic about it is key.
And making it look like it wasn't a strategy.
100%.
Right.
Absolutely.
Trickiness.
So, who would benefit most from this book, and like, why should someone read this book?
I think, I talk about this a little bit, that the people who have had to use hype have been the people who don't have the advantages of others. So, for example, it's very easy for the CEO of a Fortune 500 company, or I don't know, someone who inherited money or someone who has advantages, to say, oh, this is uncouth, being theatrical, I don't need to do that. But I think if one thing that some of these quote unquote bad people have in common with the rock managers, with this, with that, is that they needed to take the advantage. They needed a way to the center that other people have. So if you have a small business, if you're an artist, if you're someone who's disadvantaged in some way, I mean, we're hearing a lot right now about evening the playing field a little bit. And that's important. That's great. At the same time, there's never been a society on earth where things were even. There's always going to be people who are on the outskirts and who don't have advantages. And there's always going to be people who do. And you can be upset about that, or you can find tools that help you get to the middle, because a lot of this stuff can be done on the cheap. A lot of this stuff, you can get a lot of leverage with a few small actions, and then you can become more respectable as you go on. So it's funny because in almost all contexts, hype is considered a negative word. It's like you're hyping something up. It means there isn't substance, except for one, and that's hip hop. There's a member of a hip hop group called the Hype Man, like Flava Flav and Public Enemy, and they're there to hype up the act, but they're also part of the act. They often rap, and it's a very positive thing. And I was really inspired by that, because traditionally, I mean, think about what hip hop is. It comes from the African American community, which still, has not had the same fair shakes as a lot of other groups. And it comes from the South Bronx, which is the poorest neighborhood in the United States. And it's made with records, not even instruments, right? And these people have taken over the world. It's the dominant form of art and music in the world. And so, I don't know, I was inspired by that hip hop can really give you an advantage when you don't have obvious advantages. Not hip hop hype, I mean, in the hip hop sort of tradition.
What was the movie? There was a movie about hip hop, or the origin of hip hop.
Was it The Get Down? Maybe
I can't remember.
What is it show?
It was really good because it gave you the history.
I can't wait to get this book.
Well, you can pre-order this book.
You can absolutely pre-order it. Yep, you can.
Yeah, you can pre-order. You can pre-order it on Amazon.
Yeah, I'm excited about that. Have you ever read the book Trust Me, I'm Lying?
Yeah. I have to admit that was an inspiration for this in a lot of ways. I mean, he got his own sort of role as a hype artist, but I was pretty blown away by that book.
When I read the first maybe chapter of it, and I was listening to it in an audiobook, my jaw just dropped, and I was like talking to everybody who would listen, like, I've been saying this the whole time. The media is just a freaking entertainment. Hello. And even more so, it's fascinating, like kind of what you're saying, Michael, is if you want to be seen and noticed, you can create that easier now than ever before.
Okay, absolutely.
Because there's so much media out there. People want to write about something. Like, you don't think I've already thought about calling all the news channels when I show up with the freaking tiara from the bikini competition? Hell yeah. Because guess what? They would love to have a beautiful girl in a bikini with a tiara to talk about how I got there. Freaking, they need some good news. Let's go.
And that's the news media. And then imagine the fact that there are all these other forms of media, right? So like we're on a podcast right now, and I'm promoting a book. Now, I don't know what your listenership is. It's a lot bigger than what I'm going to talk about. But imagine if only 500 people hear this. And it's bigger than that. But let's say it was a smaller podcast. It's in a certain corner of the world. Normally, you would talk in a bookstore to 50 people. Those are 500 people who all took the time to listen to a podcast about a specific topic on sales and who probably read business books.
Mm-hmm.
So there are just so many avenues you can exploit now. You just have to be really targeted so that you're not all over the place. You have to find your niche, right? But
yeah, where it's going to work. It's great. I love it.
Well, we a lot during this whole pandemic, we've talked about this before, that I strategically placed myself.
Yeah,
in the
Gina's
media
like a
locally.
media darling right now.
I did
really
big time.
I did so many TV interviews as like a voice
and small
of
business
the
in general
theater world during COVID shutdown of theaters.
How did you position that? Now, I'm curious, because that's very cool and very smart. What do you think, had them so easily put you on? Well,
I mean, it's an interesting strategy. I'm already a known entity locally because of Carolina Improv, so that helps. So that gives me a little bit of credibility. I already have a relationship with local media through the years. So I took the approach of nobody's talking about how small businesses are being impacted by COVID right now. Right? That was one angle. And then the other angle was the theater world, because they were hit the hardest. Theaters were the first to close and the last to reopen. Most theaters were shut down 5 months at minimum, some longer. So I just kept becoming a voice of small business and how small business is being impacted, because all they were talking about were the numbers rising and the people dying and the hype, right? That had its own hype. And I'm like, where's the story about the impact on business? So all it took was to get one television station to buy into that, and then I became on the radar. So anytime anything broke, like there was a presidential debate last night, Gina, what is your feelings? Like, right? Like they want me to talk about the debate, right? They did like.
Right? You just became the go-to person. It's like a snowball effect. Yeah.
Exactly. I became the go-to person on, as a small business, how are you feeling after last night's debate?
Wow.
I mean, this was all strategic. I mean, I did so many TV interviews in the past 6 months. I lost track.
Yeah. Well, you also are well-spoken. That kind of helps.
That helps. I know how to talk to the media. I know how to talk in sound bites. What's been most interesting about the media, talk about hype.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I was a journalism major, so that makes me also another reason why I know how to talk to the media. But what I found interesting about the media is that they all started asking this. I don't know if this is like a new thing in journalism. So how did it make you feel? Like, were you really upset? Like, tell me, like, how upset were you?
Can you cry a little bit for us?
I mean, I literally would say, I'm like, do you want me to cry in this interview? I mean, I can if you want me to. Is that what you're looking for? Because, I mean, I can cry on demand. And I would like get teared up. Really? Because that was the hype they were looking for.
That's funny. I mean, this is a whole new can of worms for me. I didn't realize that was going on right now.
Yeah, so that became a whole. But see, when our theater resurrected in another space, we weren't forgotten about, because how could you forget about us when I was yapping for 6 months?
Yeah, but that's good. I mean, that a lot of people, and listen, I mean, this whole past year or whatever has been a rough thing for most people, just on a lot of levels. So I'm not minimizing that, because it's been a rough year for me in a lot of ways. That being said, I mean, your attitude of sort of not, speaking of Ryan Holiday, he talks about alive time and dead time. It's like you could have just been like, oh, woe is me. My business is shut down. Mm-hmm. But you used the time really wisely. It's like a chess game. You thought a bunch of moves ahead, which is smart.
I'm pretty and smart. Well, hey,
Gina's not real dumb. She's smart.
She's not that dumb. You're not dumb. You're not dumb for a goy, Okay, I should really say what that's about. I'm not a self-hating Jew, but Gina and I have this joke about I'm like her resident Jew, and I don't know where that came from. But on for a while.
Let's clarify. Are you in fact Jewish?
Yeah. Wait. I am showing the side of my nose to the camera. So.
I mean, come on. He looks like a Jew. Come on.
Well, his name looks a little bit Jewish too.
Actually, when I'm walking down the street in New York City, there's all these, like the Hasidim, they only try to convert Jews, with the hats. They try to make you more like.
Are
Jewish.
you still in New York?
I'm in Beacon, New York, but
Okay.
I used to go to the city every week. I just haven't been.
Yeah.
Whenever I'm walking down the street, they yell at me. They go, "Are you Jewish? Are you Jewish?" And I'm like, "Wow, is it that obvious? Like, really?"
You need the hat.
They want me
I'm
to
good over here.
You need the
take
hat.
their branches, whatever they're doing. Yeah. This is really not very woke what I'm talking about right now. We're very culturally sensitive. Is that all right?
Yeah.
It's fine.
I mean, I'm like being anti-Semitic against
but
myself.
see, if you're Jewish, see, that's the rule. If you're Jewish, you're allowed to make fun of the fact that you're Jewish. If you're fat, you're allowed to make fun. I'm allowed to make I'm stupid blonde jokes because I'm blonde.
Is that real though?
My hair, mostly.
I mean, you're an actual blonde because most blondes aren't.
Yes. We don't talk about that part though.
I'm not a natural redhead, but I pretend to be.
No, it's more like a dirty blonde. I enhance. Let's just say I enhance.
I don't enhance it. I need to start coloring in like the little sides.
I just figured out a few years ago all the ways I could enhance the good sides of me, and I'm like, what was I waiting for? Enhance,
really?
Bitches.
We both enhanced our hair today.
Is that what you're referring to? What is that? How you're enhancing?
I enhance it wherever I can these days.
She's enhanced several places.
See episode number whatever. Episode, I forget which episode was Dr. White.
I'm intrigued.
We're trying to. That's number 3 on your list. Create an atmosphere of curiosity and intrigue.
Yeah. Exactly. I'm naturally perfect and just naturally stunning. I don't need to enhance myself.
We aspire to be you.
Who doesn't?
Hey, it was awesome having you on the show.
It was awesome to be here. I had a lot of fun. This was so much fun. Gina, as always, it was a pleasure talking to you. It always, it's never long enough. And Rachel Pitts, it was fantastic to meet you. And maybe, can I call you Rachel?
You may.
I will call you Rachel. And it's a pleasure to know you as well. You guys are very good interviewers.
Aw,
thanks.
That's a big compliment.
Guess we better not break up again.
We better not break up. You need to hear that episode about how we almost broke up.
I did.
It was her fault.
Yeah, it was my fault. I just yes and her.
That's good.
Yeah. I'm the older one. Sometimes you just go, all right.
You can find all of our. Where can people find you first, Michael?
Well, a couple of places. I mean, certainly, thank you for talking about the book. That's where my head's at these days. But I own a company called MicroFame Media. Fame like famous. So that's microfame.com. Also, I have my own website, Michael F. Schein, spelled SCHEIN.com. And something I do, maybe you can put this in the show notes, but I regularly send out recommendations for books that are kind of unusual, that I learned how to and continue to learn how about hype and that aren't kind of the typical, like how to build a 6-figure, business marketing books. And that's hypereads.com/list. So I know it's always hard to give out URLs on here, but maybe they'll be in the show notes, but those are all good places to reach me.
And you can find out all about us at womenyourmotherwarnedyouabout.com. Michael and anyone interested, you can find me on social media at The Singing Lender for all my music stuff, and then at Ultrafit Lifestyle for following me on my bikini competition journey and fitness journey.
And hey, if you loved this episode or any show that you've listened to, could you share it with your friends and your colleagues? That would be super awesome. Of course, we love ratings and reviews, but give the gift of the women your mother warned you about. And it is the gift that keeps on giving. And for more about me, you can go to ginatramarco.com and find all the things, including how thick in the gravy I am these days. And that's this show. It's time to go. See you, Rachel. See you, Michael. Bye, Warners.
this really will get serious soon.
Yeah, it doesn't have to. I don't think anybody wants it to be serious.
Women Your Mother Warned You About is a Pod About It production. You've got a great idea. Let's pod about it. Visit podaboutit.com for more information.
Woof, woof. Monkey, monkey.